struggle all around this continent and to work to support them. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you. We all define activism in a different way, and some of us are more comfortable sitting behind our computer and sending emails or picking up the phone and making phone calls or showing up to events like this and working in the background. I think you saw earlier when I got introduced, I was kind of a background kind of girl. But no matter how you get involved, we all need to keep the fight. I'm in awe to be amongst this group we call 350 Maine. So thank you for taking me along the ride, and I can't wait for the rest of it. And I also want to remind you, for those of you who didn't see today, there was a whole other group of us out on 302, showing everyone that drove by to enjoy this lake and all the watershed around it, wherever they were headed, that the pipeline is right there, sitting in their water. So I want to thank all of you that were a part of that. And now it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to introduce someone who I so very much admire, who's leading the charge in the world of divestment, as well as leading the charge here with 350 Maine, and that's Reed Brugger.
My apologies for the cutoff in the video. We should be up and going well now.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. We're honoring summer heat, and fortunately we have a break from summer heat today and are really enjoying the cool breezes off the lake here. And I am Reed Brugger, and I am a 350 Maine activist. I was arrested with 5 others on June 27th for raising public awareness about the dangers of Bakken crude that is being shipped regularly across our state. The 30 of us who gathered on the Pan Am tracks in Fairfield had a simple message: stop sneaking dirty fracked oil through Maine. 9 days later, the world woke up to the horror of Lac Mégantic. The rail disaster in Lac Mégantic is emblematic of a system that has lost its moral compass. How else could we get to the point where using defective tanker cars to ship millions of barrels of highly flammable oil through population centers is considered safe? How else can a company get away with setting work rules that have a single person manning a 74-car train and park it unattended overnight on an incline so it can get a rolling start the next morning before it hits town? How many more lives must be lost before we stop this madness? When we protested on June 27th, we couldn't have begun to imagine the tragedy that would unfold a week later in Lac Mégantic. We should keep that in mind as we oppose the reversal of the flow of the Portland-Montreal pipeline. I suspect our worst fears don't encompass all that could happen if that pipeline failed and tar sand spilled in Maine. We already pay too high a price when we extract tar sand, coal, fracked oil, and gas. Our fossil fuel addiction is turning vast areas of our planet into environmental sacrifice zones. In each of these areas, the lives of the people and the health of the land are sacrificed for the profits of the oil companies. On the Fort Berthold Sioux Reservation in the middle of the Bakken oil fields, Candy Mawson speaks about more than a dozen truck-related deaths and a dramatic increase in fatal respiratory diseases since the oil boom began in 2008. St. Berthold is their last piece of homeland, a homeland that encompassed all of the northern plains, and it is being made unlivable. And that's being repeated in Alberta and around the world. There's a word for that. It's genocide. Continued reliance on fossil fuels will surely lead to more human misery and a climate so changed that a mass die-off of species would be inevitable. The stakes are that high. 350 Maine will not back down in our campaigns against extreme energy. On June 27th, we stood against fracking. Today, we stand against tar sands. Next Sunday in Somerset, Mass, it will be coal. We call on all Mainers to join our campaigns to end extreme energy extraction and stop climate change. That oil change should never have been loaded with Bakken crude and taken that fateful trip across a continent to the little town of Lochmaganty. We will end rail shipments of dirty fracked oil across Maine, and we will stop the reversal of the Portland-Montreal pipeline. Thank you so much. I have buckets here. We are hoping you will contribute to support the recovery of Lac-Mégantic. We are going to donate to Croix Rouge Canadienne, the Canadian Red Cross. Please contribute what you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reed. Again, for me, the word that keeps coming up today is connections. I do want to acknowledge some additional connections. We do have our coalition partners. I want to acknowledge who co-sponsored this event today: Environment Maine, Food and Water Watch, Maine Green Initiatives, and Glenn Brand is here somewhere from Sierra Club, or was, he voted in. And so we just want to really acknowledge that. And we are part of a Maine coalition, which also includes NRCM, and then New England Coalition, which is our partners with 350 New England. And I really, again, want to make another shout out to David Stember, who has been a gift to us in support of 350.org. David's not going to contribute in the bucket, apparently.
I don't have my wallet.
And also our friends in Canada. That coalition includes Canadians as well. So, so much to say. A number of things come to mind for me with our next speaker. One was having heard about him for years and having the opportunity to interview him about a year and a half ago while I was working with Occupy Maine TV. And I felt a little bit like a Bill McKibben groupie at the time, and I still do. And I'm thrilled that he's been here. He's here. He's really shown up in support of us in enormous ways. You know, I stood across from him trying to think of the smartest possible questions to ask, you know, and he kept up with everything. And I was like, well, what can we do as individuals? What one thing can we do? And, you know, I wanted to hear something that Prius, light bulbs, just something. And his answer was organize, organize, organize. As far as I'm concerned, 350 Maine has been listening. And here we are today. Bill McKibben.
Thank you so much, Bob and Dave Stember and everybody else do such amazing work. It's really fun for me to be here. I end up at a certain number of rallies and demonstrations. I think we boast at 350 that we've organized about 20,000 of them in every country except North Korea now. But there's never been one as pretty as this, I gotta say. Just sheer aesthetic terms. And you know, it's as if the powers that be up above are doing their best to remind us what we should be powering our lives with. We're experiencing a kind of ongoing solar spill here today, a kind of ongoing wind spill, and it's entirely delightful, you know. It couldn't be nicer, and it's a shame that we're not putting more of it to use, and we sure could be. We know what to do. It's moving to look around the world at the few places that have started doing what they should be doing. In Germany this summer, there are days when more than half the power that the Germans use is coming from solar panels within their borders. Okay, and this is Germany. I mean, Munich is north of Montreal.
We could do this across this continent with such power, such ease. All it would take is standing up to the richest industry on earth and keeping them from taking us down a completely impossible path. I want to pick up where Sylvia left off and just talk for a minute about connections, of all kinds. I was up in Alberta a couple of weeks ago. Our dear, dear, dear friends in the First Nations communities up there, who we've worked very hard with over the last few years and who have really become just brothers and sisters to us, asked me if I'd come up to be in this healing walk across the tar sands. And we camped out for a few days in the boreal forest, and it was beautiful. In fact, the first night we were there in this teepee, a baby was born, and everybody was thinking this was going to be a child of great power, and everybody was very happy. But then we walked out across one small part of this vast tar sands complex, and I'd seen the pictures before, but it's worse than that. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. The only thing that comes to mind is Mordor. I mean, it just looks like not only have they taken the forest and turned it into a vast desert wasteland, and not only are there these belching, horrible upgrader refineries all through it, but there are these enormous tailing ponds, as big as the lake that we can see out here. And all the time that you're there, 24 hours a day, there are cannons firing. Boom, 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 boom in the background. And the cannons are there to make sure that no birds ever land on the tailing pond, because if they do, they're dead ducks right away. It's hellish up there. It's like there is a literal war going on, cannons and everything, against the natural world. And it's astonishing once you've seen it to see what people's lives are being subjected to, and then to think about people at the other end of that pipeline down in Texas, and to think about the people who have done the amazing and brave job over the last year of trying to slow down that southern end of this pipeline, and about the people both in rural and in urban parts of the Southwest that are coming together to say, we don't want this anymore. It's really powerful to see. We're also connected up, just as intimately, with those people all over the world who are suffering the effects of what happens when that carbon gets poured into the atmosphere. So it goes way beyond this continent. We just, 350 just convened in Istanbul a couple of weeks ago. 5,000 young people from around the world applied, and we were able to take 500 of them and spend 2 weeks, 500 young people from 135 countries, training them up to go be great climate organizers all over the world, because they're needed all over the world, because the whole world is just coming apart. I mean, I'm not going to, on this beautiful day, spend a lot of time driving the painful truths of climate science into your heads. I know you know them already, but when I first wrote about this 25 years ago, when I wrote the first book about it all, it was still pretty abstract. There is nothing abstract about it now. Now, someplace around the world, every single day, people are dying. Think about the floods we've seen even in the last few weeks, as rain falls in quantities that it's never fallen before. Here, Vermont, where I live, had the rainiest May and June in its history, but all over the world. In India, in northern India, in Uttarakhand, I just talked with our 350 India crew the other day. The monsoon came early, and it came very, very violently, like they'd never seen before. 5,000 at least religious pilgrims were washed away in the floods. They'll probably never find their bodies. They're buried under landslides and things, but it's the greatest monsoon tragedy in India's history. Up in Calgary, sort of irony of ironies, 3 weeks ago, they had the biggest floods they've ever had. And the hockey arena there was flooded to the 10th row. And it must be said, the corporate headquarters of most of the tar sands companies were underwater too, which might have been okay, but a lot of other people paid the price up there for all of that. And as usual, it's poor people that, I think about Vermont when we had the floods from Hurricane Sandy, one of the things everybody, from Hurricane Irene, one of the things everybody figured out was that trailer parks are built on floodplains, and that's whose homes got washed away. Those are the people that you're in powerful solidarity with, and who are paying real attention and are incredibly grateful that all around the world this network of people is rising up, equals, partners, leaderless, but beautiful. And I got to tell you the good news, which is that movement is getting stronger and stronger almost by the minute. If I'm a little groggy, it's because I came in yesterday, I got into Portland about 2:30 this morning from Moab, Utah, where our friends at Rising Tide and 350 Utah and Peaceful Uprising and things were getting ready for the big fight against the first tar sands mine in the United States up on the Colorado Plateau, and they are organized like crazy. They're having an action camp next week as part of this summer heat stuff. It was beautiful to see. And the night before that, I was on the Columbia River in Vancouver, Washington, where people are fighting, all along the Pacific Northwest. They're trying to build ports to take coal and liquefied natural gas and oil out of the center of the North American continent and ship it overseas. And they're determined to make it the dirty energy corridor to keep corporate profits rolling strong. Many, many, many people are determined to make it the choke point that keeps that coal and oil and gas underground where it needs to stay. If they can't get it out to market, no bank's going to give them the money to build the damn stuff. And so that's why people are doing such brave work. They're going to jail and everything else to make sure that stuff never gets built. The day before that, I was in a place kind of like this, on the Mackinac Strait between Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, the longest suspension bridge in the world, I think. But underneath that suspension bridge, something that people had forgotten about for a long time, a 60-year-old pipeline running underneath the center of the Great Lakes, and a pipeline that, yes, they're determined to start pumping tar sands oil through now. It's as crazy there as it is here. Think about how insane it is to take a risk with something like this lake and this water supply. Think how crazy it is to figure out to take a risk with managing to simultaneously wreck Lake Huron and Lake Michigan at the same time. All of this is crazy. And the good news is that I think we're going to stop a hell of a lot of it. I don't know whether we can stop climate change. We've waited a long time to get started. But I am absolutely certain that we can stop an awful lot of this insanity. There is a movement rising, a fossil fuel resistance. And it is a beautiful thing in large part because it has no leaders. It has no Martin Luther King or whatever, and it doesn't need one because we're in a different time now. I think the image to have in all of our heads is what we want our energy grid to look like. Instead of a few centralized big power plants, we want 1 million solar panels on 1 million rooftops all interconnected. And instead of a few huge environmental organizations and a few leaders and things like that, what we want is an interconnected resistance that really, really works. And it goes from people who are doing things that seem, confrontational and whatever, like sitting in the trees in Texas, that go from that all the way to people, Citizens Climate Lobby, busy writing letters to the editor all over the country because that's sort of where they're comfortable. And sometimes people can switch in those roles back and forth, and we can all take part in different parts of it, and we're all part of this large thing that's emerging. A large thing that's emerging that wasn't there a few years ago, and that should scare the hell out of the fossil fuel industry. They have had a free ride for a long time, and they have all the money that there is. For all intents and purposes, they have more money than God. But at a certain point, money doesn't work quite as well if we figure out other currencies to use. And the currencies that we've got to use are the currencies of movements, passion, spirit, creativity, and sometimes we've got to spend our bodies. And we can see it starting to work, you know. We look down at the Keystone Pipeline, and we look at people fighting hard in Texas and Oklahoma, and then we look at people fighting hard in Washington and in Nebraska, and all over the country. When we started in on this 2 years ago, everybody said, don't even bother, this is a done deal, no one's ever stopped anything like this. They took a poll of energy insiders, the National Journal did, 97% said that TransCanada would have their permit to cross the border by the end of 2011. They've built too much of it down south, but they haven't ever gotten their permit to cross the border, and there isn't new tar sands oil coming in from Canada that way, and that's because 1,250-some people went to jail, and because 15,000 people circled the White House, and because 50,000 people descended on D.C. in a cold day this February. I know a bunch of you were there.
Yeah.
And that's power rising up. And I got to say, it just makes me happy as heck to think of all those big piles of pipe sitting rusting in staging yards across the upper Midwest because they don't have their permit yet, and they may not get it. I don't know. I do know absolutely for certain that no one's going to put tar sands oil through New England because of the work that you guys have done. I don't have any doubt in my mind at all. We keep organizing like this. This fight, we will definitely win. They're having a hard time putting it through Texas and Nebraska and whatever. If they're having a hard time doing that, they are not getting it through Vermont and Maine. And that's great, because we have to, when we do that, okay, when we shut down that possibility, it's not just that we're saving Sebago Lake and saving a certain amount of carbon in the atmosphere. It's that we're making it much harder for them to do their work in general. Because when, they're trying to triple the size of production up in the tar sands in Canada, they have vast plans for expansion. But when the banks that are going to lend the money to do that look at it, one of the things they see is, you know what, it's taken you 2 or 3 years longer than you thought to even build this Keystone thing, and maybe it's not going to happen. And the carrying costs on that, they're adding up into the hundreds of millions of dollars now. And they look at things like this and say, how are you going to get this stuff out to market someplace? They're not going to let you take it across New England. People in British Columbia just blocked the Gateway pipeline to the Pacific. We've got to hold the line for a few more years. And when those few years are up, the world will have realized that we're no longer going to do this stuff. It's not us that are in the last desperate cliff-hanging battle. It's them that are in the last moments of their power, okay? Overwhelmed by sun and wind and common sense. It's going to be a fight to see how much, we're obviously going to we've already taken a tremendous hit to the planet's climate. It was not a good sign last summer when the Arctic melted. We've taken one of the 5 or 6 biggest physical features on Earth and we've broken it, And we look out, to the Atlantic here and realize that like all oceans on Earth, it's already 30% more acidic than it was 40 years ago. We've taken hits, but we are now fighting back. I don't know exactly how it's going to come out, but I know that the fight is on. And as a New Englander, I'm off to D.C. in a day or two to meet hundreds of grandparents who are marching from Camp David to the White House in this incredible heat, and then on to Ohio where they're working on stopping fracking, and then on to Richmond, California where they're trying to stand up to the Chevron refinery built in the middle of this city, and things. But my heart's always in New England. This is where I grew up and where I love, and it is such a pleasure to know that New England is in good hands and well defended by all of you. You couldn't be doing a more important thing for the planet or all sorts of other people on it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Bill. I know that was a hard trip, so I'm glad you're here and you're heading south here in just a bit. My understanding is if the press needs another opportunity to speak and you're available, Chloe will help that to happen. I just want to do a couple quick housekeeping things as we move forward. Just to remind you, people do ask what can we do, and there are opportunities to do things over at our information table in terms of postcards to sign, Portland Water District, Portland Pipeline Company, and to that governor of ours, Mr. LeSage. So please, and the party continues as long as you would like it to continue. Thank you for your generosity on so many levels, including being here. We know everybody's life is busy. This is a Saturday that you could be doing something else. We're really glad you came out. What happens next is a closing ceremony that Andy Burt is going to head up. And then there will be two main announcements. One is Chloe with her divestment group, which is an opportunity for people to meet with Chloe Maxman and talk about divestment. And then the other is the Climate Summer Riders, who are a gift again to us here this summer coming through Maine. We really appreciate your attention to something that we'd like to share with you. And as they move through the state, we'd love you to support them over the coming weeks. Anything else, Sarah? Okay. All right. So where is Andy? Okay, it's your mic.
Well, I was thinking about this gathering. Oh, thanks, sweetie. Yeah. And the words about all of us connecting to these wonderful white pines, to our fellow humans here gathered, and so on. And there is a short piece that was put together for the United Nations Environmental Group, and I thought perhaps we could join together in this. There is a frame which is, we join with the earth and with each other. And I will read the verses, and then I will ask you to add that refrain. We join with the earth and with each other. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the lakes and rivers, to rejoice in the sunlight and the coming rain, and to sing the song of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember all children of all species. We join with the earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life. We join together with the earth and with each other. It's been a pleasure to frolic in the water with all of you and to stand together for this place and for the whole earth. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So that's the conclusion of the formal stuff, and now the real fun begins. couple of things, the three things that I can remember to consistently express are possibility, which again this group reveals, solidarity, once again this group reveals, and gratitude. And so again, there's just so many people to thank. I do want to thank Revision Energy that supported us by having their solar-powered vehicle bring Bill up here to Maine, to Sebago Lake. There was a real effort for us all to be in integrity here. If you noticed, our band was powered by bike power, and we're all trying really hard to do this as best we can. So again, thank you so much for being out there. We'll be a couple things you'll check in our web page coming up. The 25th is unfortunately the 3rd anniversary of the Kalamazoo oil spill. In participation with other organizations, we'll be acknowledging that, including in Portland at the Portland Water District on Thursday the 25th. So look at our website for that. And then of course we have buses, thanks to Heidi Brugger for the heavy lifting for buses going out of Portland down to Brayton Point, Massachusetts for the coal protest on the 28th. And then it just keeps chugging along. And looking forward to seeing you there. So again, thank you all so much for coming out today. What happens next is, again, your participation to your degree, but we would like to hear from Chloe, and then the next presentation will be by the Climate Summer Riders, and then there's a little bit of an open mic quality, depending upon how that goes. But the point is, the rest of the day is to enjoy and have fun, and we're so thrilled you're here. Thank you.
So for anyone who's working on divestment, whether you're a student or a community member, we're going to have a meetup, and we can meet right in this area and find some place to go, but just to connect and network, and that's it. Yeah.
Yourself, you guys do great. So I will say, this is the Climate Summer Riders. They have a bike. They're currently in Auburn, and the next stop is Waterville. And I'll let you tell the rest of the story from there. So.
Thank you. My name is Garrett. I'm from Indiana, and I'm a rising junior at the University of Notre Dame. So we are Climate Summer. It's a part of the Better Future Project, which is a nonprofit out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So this summer, we're riding by bicycle, only by bicycle, over 1,500 miles across the state of Maine to bring awareness, to raise climate change awareness, and to really educate, outreach, and really stimulate people in the communities for this really important work. You know, we think this is the most important challenge of our lifetime, and so we're out there really engaging with communities, connecting one-on-one with community members, and trying to grow the movement.
Hi, I'm Mariah. I'm from California, and I go to school in New York City. This is my first time to Maine, as are many of our teammates. And we just sort of wanted to share what it's like to be here with you, which is, you know, in one word, simply wonderful. But also, you know, when you come out to events like these, you always think, like, what can I do? Like, maybe my presence there will make the oil spill that much larger, and maybe I'll make an impact that way. And I think that we often forget the advantages that coming to an event like this has on yourself, because I think that sometimes it's so easy to just understand intellectually that there are lots of other people out there who feel the same way and who, you know, are going to stand with you. And then it's a totally different experience to stand here and look around at every single person here, whether you got here by a canoe or a kayak or by riding your bicycle or came from Massachusetts or just came to share good music. And that sort of atmosphere and community is the kind of people that I know that we are so proud to be a part of, and to foster that and as a community. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really empowering in both ways to be here and to also just receive this atmosphere.
Alright, so my name is Sean, and I'm from Portland, Maine. And I feel like, yeah, Portland, Maine's pretty cool. I feel like there isn't too much I can say. I'm used to talking to people who don't really know a lot about these issues, and I'm fairly sure we're all on the same page here, so it's not like I can really tell you about what's going on. But what I can tell you is something that really plagues my mind is the fact that the tar sands pipeline does threaten the water security of Portland, Maine, which is something you would never think of in Maine because we have a ridiculous amount of water, but the water isn't worth anything if it's not drinkable. So this really plagued on me for a while. I just couldn't think of anything but the fact that it's a real possibility that we might not have clean water. But I also realized that it's not just about us here in this town. It's not just about us here in this state. It's not just about us in general. This isn't a one-person movement. This isn't a one-state movement. This is a global, international, intercultural, interlingual movement that we all have a very big stake in. So this is not the end. This is only the beginning. As some people alluded to, there's going to be a vote in South Portland. Do we have any South Portland residents here? Woo! Yeah! So the concerned citizens of South Portland will be working to block the tar sands pipeline, and that's one way that they've learned that they can help this movement. And there's many ways that you can, whether it's related to the tar sands pipeline or fracking in Western Massachusetts, or the break coal plant action that's happening this weekend. Empower yourself. Find a way that you can use your personal talents, skills, interests, hobbies in order to further move something that's bigger than you. It's what I've learned to do, and it's brought me more personal satisfaction than anything else. So thank you guys for coming here. You guys all rock. Woo!
So we would like to mention also that we are one of 4 teams across the entire New England area. There are 2 teams in Massachusetts working on fracking, and another team in the states of Vermont and New Hampshire also working on the tar sands issue. And we are online. Our website is climatesummer.net. We have a blog. You guys can all follow us. And also something that you can do today. You know, we're all here for this new event. On a table over there, we're doing video petitions. So you guys, if you already have it, you can come over. It's really simple and quick. You can help join our movement as we travel across the state of Maine to kind of join solidarity against the tar sand movement. So thank you guys for your attention and thanks for being here.
You survived?
That was awful.
Oh no.
I'm not sure if it's your phone or if it's the app, but it just keeps shutting down.